Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on live from SEC Media Days. Day 4, last day of SEC Media Days. Guys, we are wiped. We've been working hard. But joining me, as he always does, is my good friend JD Pickell from On3 Sports, college football analyst. JD, we've heard from most of the coaches. Eli Drinkowitz is on the stage as we speak. But it's been an interesting week. Hugh Freeze went on Tuesday, and he projected a lot of confidence in his team. We had some news last night. Top 150 receiver Malcolm Simmons was arrested on allegedly domestic violence charges. But this is a deep team, and he talked about how much talent Auburn has. What did you make of the message that Hugh Freeze had this week?
If you're an Auburn fan, this is kind of the year where you hope your head coach has projected some extra confidence, right? You hope there's this feeling of, okay, now we go. You know what I mean? Because there's been a couple of years where when it hasn't gone right, I feel like the message has been, okay, well, be patient. Well, there's a lot of talent. They got to mature. We got to have it all gel. Be patient. And now in year 3, you're not like talking about patience anymore. It's like, no, let's go actually win some football games. So to have that align with your head coach's demeanor, I mean, Mike, this is awesome for us. And I've been joking with some of the guys coming through. Like, it's probably a lot more fun for us than it is for y'all because it's talking season for us. But I do think that there is something to presence and presentation and how you project. I think some of that is real and in some ways is something to just kind of nibble on when it comes to what next year is going to be. So in terms of like the media day test, if we want to put it that way, I think Hugh Freeze passed.
We have the task of projecting the order of finish today.
Yeah.
We get the email every year. Give me a little preview, man. Where do you have Auburn finishing in your rankings this year?
I would need to see it all in front of me to tell you exactly where I put Auburn. I'll tell this. I think Auburn's going to be an 8-win team. I think 8 wins is probably right around the sweet spot for them. If they can get to 9, phenomenal. So I don't know where that would put them exactly in the SEC, but I think the big thing for me is, are you able to, one, take a step forward and look good offensively and prove to the entire country, again, you weren't crazy for believing in Auburn and the roster talent and all those things. And can you make it a thing to where this time next year we're talking about Auburn like, hey, 8 wins, 10 gets you in the playoff. Saw an improvement from the year before. Like they can make that jump. So this is about getting to the spot where you can then make that jump to being a team that's competing for the conference and ultimately the playoff.
Do you think 8 wins is a little disappointing maybe this season with the schedule that they have? And I mean, after Georgia, you get a very different Missouri team. You get Arkansas, who, you know, our good friend Josh Pate had to take the under at 5.5 on Arkansas. You get Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Mercer, and that's a hell of a stretch that I think presents a lot of winnable football games.
Sure. I think it's more disappointing if we were to rewind the clock when Hugh Freeze got hired and say year 3 you're winning 8 games, to be like, man, really? After 3 years only get 8 wins? But I think when we look at what last year was, and the way the offense just looked so discombobulated, and the young talent, you know, having to take another step this year, a 3-win improvement feels like it'd be something to be celebrated. Like year 4 is the one that I'm circling of, okay, now it is 100% your team. It is your culture. It is your guys. It is your recruiting classes. Like at this point now, this is your team, Hugh Freeze. So if you're an Auburn fan disappointed by 8 wins, I would understand. But I think based on what last year was, 8 wins I think will be a really good improvement.
Some fans went at me on social media. I said that Hugh Freeze doesn't have a signature win.
On social media?
Oh, yeah. People were upset with me on social media. Who knew? But I said that Auburn does not have a signature win in the Hugh Freeze era. Some people pointed to the Texas A&M game. I didn't really feel like a signature win to me. You know, do you see a signature win on this schedule here this year? You got Georgia and Alabama at home. You open the year at Baylor. They're going to be a solid football team. It would be a good win on the road. You know, you've got pretty good Texas A&M team on the road. You've got Oklahoma, will be a revenge game for Jackson Arnold. Georgia comes in game 6. You know, where do you see a signature win for Auburn?
Always looking at the Iron Bowl when it comes to Auburn, right? Like I feel like that game it's in Jordan Hare. That game gets weird. And I think, too, to go back to like how we define signature wins, I'd be curious how Auburn fans define that, because I'm actually with you on this. Like, I think if you're going to have a signature win, it's got to be against like a tier 1 head coach, top 5 head coach in the sport. So it's like, man, you were a 4th and, 31 away from having a signature win against Nick Saban. That would have been a signature win. Like, I would take that. You beat Kalen DeBoer this year. I still think he's one of the best coaches in the sport, contrary to what, last year looked like. So I think the Bama game, Jordan Hare gets weird. At that point, you should be somewhat decided at quarterback. You should be gelled as a roster. I'm looking at the Iron Bowl as a potential signature win.
Look, NIL has shifted the conversation in college football right now. Greg Sankey sat down with us earlier this week and said he's a little frustrated with institutions that asked for guardrails and are now preparing to mount legal challenges to the guardrails that they asked for, because those guardrails are coming up and saying, look, you're going to be way over your cap. AD John Cohen, Auburn AD John Cohen, is pointing to August 1st as a date where you might see the clearinghouse come through and say, this deal's not good, this deal's not good. You got 10 more million to your cap than you thought you had. It seems like there's still a lot to hash out with NIL. What do you think about the state of NIL right now in college sports? Athletes are getting what they asked for. They're getting paid, but certainly that's coming with some rules now.
It is so fascinating, isn't it, where we are? Like, because we all asked for this, right? I think a lot of us were saying, pay the guys. The guys need to get paid, and then we got thrown into this with very little parameters. I think what Kirby Smart had to say earlier this week, when we got a minute and a half with him, we asked him, what's the first step to fixing college football? How do we take a step forward from where we are right now? It's a great sport, but how do we move forward? And his statement was, we need to enforce contracts. We need to actually have it where if you want to leave a school, I know this is happening in some places, but if you want to leave a school, your contract has to then be paid out. So it makes it a lot harder to leave, which then makes culture something that I think it's more easily built, which you then get back to what college football is, I don't want to say known for, but one of the core tenets, I would say, of what's made it special is the camaraderie and the way it's different in that way from the NFL. So it's funny everyone's asking for guardrails but also mounting challenges, because I think we all appreciate rules so long as they don't keep us from doing what we want to do, you know what I mean? Just in life in general, we like speed limits as long as we don't get a speeding ticket, So that's kind of where we are right now.
We like speeding limits as long as we don't get a speeding ticket. That's a bar right there. Jackson Arnold is going to be the center of talk until the season starts and after the season starts. Auburn went out and got the former Oklahoma quarterback to transfer in, and it feels like Hugh Freeze's tenure at Auburn is riding on Jackson Arnold's arm. You referenced the first 2 years being what they were, and I think Hugh Freeze saying that Auburn should be in the playoff conversation is always where they should have been in year 3. That was the expectation. The first 2 years came up short, so we're looking at that as a big leap. But you can't get there without quarterback play. Dynamic quarterback play wins the day all the time in college football these days. I think back to Sam Leavitt at ASU and the performance he put on in the playoff game versus Texas. That's probably the best playoff game of the whole college football playoffs, ASU Texas, right? Cam Scatteraboo was a monster. ASU picked to finish dead last in the Big 12, won the whole thing, and gave us a really entertaining playoff game. When you look at those teams, it's really hard to see someone going the distance without quarterback play. What are the chances that Jackson Arnold is average, but Auburn still has a good season?
I would wonder, so average, are we saying, I guess my follow-up question is, what are his turnover numbers like if he's average? Because I think for Peyton Thorne a year ago, you say, hey, man, if we cut down a couple of those just horrendous games, or as an offense, if we're just average in some spots, like, might be able to be in this 8-win conversation and talk about making a jump to 10 this year. And so I think if he's average, if it's the right kind of average to kind of ride the fence here, I will answer this more directly. I would have a harder time seeing Auburn in the 8-win category if Jackson Arnold isn't playing above average, because the conversation that I'm sure you've had with many a person that's come through and sat in this seat is like, not about the roster really so much anymore for Auburn, right? Like, I know that's about gelling and culture and your quarterback, but like the overall like talent tier that Auburn seems to be in from a roster level is like a playoff conversation talent level roster, but they just haven't put it together, haven't pieced it together, and they've had issues at quarterback. So going back to Arnold, I'm so fascinated to see what he looks like with the fresh start. I'm so fascinated to see what he looks like after what last year was. Because I don't know about you, Mike. I became a Jackson Arnold like truther once he stepped back in for Oklahoma and beat Bama. And it wasn't like he lit it up through the air, but like the mental fortitude to say, I got benched the most public way possible, get back in the game. Like, I was impressed. I was impressed by that as much as anything else I saw this year.
Yeah, Jackson had a lot of issues at Oklahoma last year around him. Auburn has stacked the deck around him. This is one of the best wide receiver rooms, not only in the SEC, but in the country this year. Cam Coleman projects to be a star. Malcolm Simmons might be done. Sure. But you went out and you got the second best player in the portal in Eric Singleton Jr., so they should not miss a beat there. You've got top 30 overall player in Perry Thompson, who should have an opportunity now. They went out and got Horatio Fields from Wake Forest. This is one of the most talented Auburn teams by composite star that we've seen in the last 20 years, if not the most talented. I want to shift the conversation to Hugh on the hot seat, potentially. Hot seat Hugh. Hot potato Hugh. Hottie Hugh. Right, yeah, whatever you need there. He's got to do some things this year, or his job's going to be on the line, I think. There's a lot of people who feel like, Hugh included, from my one-on-one with him, that if they go 7-5, it's kind of like how you go 7-5.
Yeah, 100%.
8 wins, to me, should be the floor for this team. But do you think there is a chance that he goes 7-5 and still keeps his job?
I think there is. I do think what you just said about how it looks matters. Like, if we go 7-5, but we got that 7th win in Jordan-Hare against Alabama to finish the year, like, that would be momentum, good vibes. Hey, look what we did at the end of the year. Look at where we're going. I would be very surprised if we're sitting here next year and Hugh Freeze is not the head coach at Auburn. Just because I think for him to lose his job, they would have to miss a bowl game again. Like, I think it would have to be like, not only like was that a bad year, I don't even see a way as to how we take a jump to get to where we want to go in year 4. You know what I mean? So I think that would be like maybe Auburn fans are like, we've been patient long enough. No, 6 wins isn't good, which I would say I understand. But I really think anything more than 7 is gravy. I think 7 is, like you said, the conversation kind of gets uncomfortable. But I think 7's kind of, I'll put it this way, 7 is like, hey, let's have a performance improvement plan conversation with your boss, right? Hey, come 7 to my office. Let's talk about your numbers. We don't fix this now. Very soon, we're going to have another conversation about your severance package.
Performance improvement plan. How very corporate of you, JD. Yeah, we are. I'll tell you this. I think at 7 wins, he's got a very, very, very uncomfortable conversation to have. You know, because it's hard for me to look at the 5 losses and not see a really, really disappointing loss in there that says, all right, is this the best you can do with all the resources that we poured into the program, with all the checks that have been written on the NIL side to get you the roster that you picked, that you wanted, and the best you can do is 7 wins and 5 losses with potentially a really, really disappointing loss. You know, I pointed to that stretch after Georgia. Again, I'm not a Missouri truther. I just don't think they're going. I think they're going to be a very different football team this year. I'm with Josh on Arkansas. Kentucky is Kentucky, and I know they beat Alabama and Auburn last year, but Vanderbilt is still Vanderbilt. I think that you should be able to clean that 5-game stretch that ends with those 4 teams and Mercer. And that means to get to 8 wins, you got to win 3 out of your first 6. Yeah. And that's an 8-win season. So 7 wins means that you probably lost a really disappointing game after Georgia, or you went 2-4 in your first 6 games, which, whew, man, I'm telling you, if you want to see the level of freak out unseen ever on the plains, let Auburn not be at least 3-3 after those first 6 games. I want to go back to make sure I get your take because we talked about the win total, but I want to make sure that we understand where you think Auburn is going to finish in the SEC. 16 teams, you know, where do you have them?
Yeah, I'll put them at 6 or 7 spot probably. without
Good.
at it on my. I feel like I need to see it all in front of me to be like, okay, this is actually where they stack up. But I think 6 or 7 is probably like middle of the pack, which I think 8 wins would do for you. You know what I'm saying? Where do you have them?
Auburn should be a top 5 team in the league this year, in my book. I think they should with this schedule. I think it's the most favorable schedule we've seen them have in 20 years. And with the talent that they have, if you get out of the first 6 games for some reason 4-2, and then you clean that next 5-game stretch, and you're 9-2 headed to the Iron Bowl with possibly a playoff spot on the line for either team, that's where you want to be if you're Hugh Freeze. I think that solidifies your job. It justifies everything you've been saying about the talent levels the first 2 years and saying, hey, give us time to catch up to the Georgias and Alabamas in talent. And it buys you a couple more years to put it all together. This is a guy who owns 2 wins versus Nick Saban. Yeah. Right? That's a short club. And he took some heat for saying, we probably should have had 3 or 4. And when you go back and look at those games, I can't say he's wrong.
He's just honest, dude. Like I think he's one of the most refreshing people to talk to at stuff like this because I don't feel like he just has a bunch of canned answers. And it gets him in trouble with his SID because they're like, hey, we got to wrap it up. And I'm like, ask him 2 questions. We're going on 10 minutes here. What do you like? You know what I'm saying? But it's so to go back to what you said about the wins over Nick Saban and should have had more. Like, he's not saying that to, like, puff his chest. Like, he's not saying that because it sounds good on social media. He's just like, yeah, I don't know. I think we should have more. But, like, next question kind of deal.
Hugh is an interesting guy. Like, maybe honest to a fault, gets himself in trouble. But certainly he believes that this team can accomplish something this year. And I think I believe him because the first 2 years, that wasn't his tone. Yeah. All he talked about was, hey, we need more talent. And since all that talk has calmed down, I think he's finally in a place where he feels comfortable that they have the personnel to do the things that he wants to do week in and week out in the SEC. JD Pickell from On3 Sports, I want to thank you for joining me as always. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Man, well, one, subscribe to the War Report. Like, lock in here. That's the first part of the second part. If you want to watch more of our stuff, though, the On3 YouTube channel, you can find me on all the socials, though, Instagram, Twitter, at JD Pickell. This is a blast, though, man. Always a pleasure to sit down with you, brother.
Appreciate you stopping by. Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. I want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. If you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, visit our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Also want to thank our friends at setsforsociety.ai. If you're looking to get to know yourself and your team a little better, Sets for Society has a unique opportunity for you to take a personality assessment, learn how you mesh well with your team, learn how you communicate well with your team. Get started today at setsforsociety.ai today and let them get you started on your path to success. I want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. I want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. And our friends at cameragraphics.net for providing all the wonderful equipment that we shot today's interview with. They're great partners with the War Report. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. We'll be back at you guys later this week with even more SEC Media Days content. So much content coming your way. We're signing off. And as always, War Eagle.